Ladies, gentlemen, and nightfarers of all ages, in Elden Ring Nightreign, not every piece of equipment is created equally. As much as most players will try to strive for consistency from one expedition to the next, choosing a set of relics that makes them strong no matter what randomly rolled drops happen to appear throughout their run, it's undeniable that for pretty much every Nightfarer, having that perfect weapon show up is just a massive power spike that can absolutely carry you through the rest of the run and obliterate the Night Lord at the end. Some weapons are good, some weapons are great, and some of them are just absolutely busted. And today we're going to talk about why legendary weapons specifically can be unbelievably powerful even if you don't plan on actually swinging them at the enemy, and how some of them are way better than you might imagine in specific scenarios. And for the most part, this is quite simply based on the existence of the legendary weapon passives. Most weapons in this game have one passive that is randomly rolled when it drops in the actual game, but every legendary weapon has a guaranteed rolled passive and then also a second passive that is randomly rolled as well. For the most part, the legendary specific passives also require the weapon to be in one of your equipped hands to be active, but this means in pretty much any situation, unless you are trying to power stance specifically for your playstyle or build, if you find a good legendary with a good passive, you can even just stick it in your left hand and let the passive do its work. That said, today I'm going to call out a few specific examples of these legendary passives that are particularly strong. Then we'll talk about how to maximize your chances of getting legendary weapons on every expedition that you do. First up then, for some specific examples of why I think people are undervaluing legendary weapon passives specifically, we have the Grafted Blade Greatsword. This weapon is pretty solid in normal Elden Ring, but reaches absolute insane busted levels in Nightreign due to the legendary passive on it, Power of Vengeance. This increases all attributes after you defeat an enemy. This effect stacks. The highest amount of stacks I've seen someone hit was around 140, and this of course not only increases your actual offense a significant amount because it increases your main offensive attribute, so it gives you way more damage, but importantly because it is all attributes that are raised, it will also let you use different weapons than your character normally might be able to use. You might be able to use dex weapons on a strength character, but it also gives you a notable increase to your maximum health, your maximum stamina, your maximum FP. It just makes you essentially feel like you are a fair amount higher level than you are, even if you were level 15. You may be thinking, however, that this is tempered by it being a legendary weapon and requiring you to be level 10 before you can even start using it and accumulating the buff, but you can find this weapon before you hit level 10. And like most equip required weapon passives, this does count if you have it in your left hand, even if you don't hit the level requirement, even if it isn't the weapon that gets the kill itself. So if you happen to get obscenely lucky and find Grafted Blade Greatsword at level 3 or something like that, you can then start building up your stacks for the entire rest of your run by just keeping it in your offhand. The only real negative with this one specifically is that it is a strength focused weapon, so it tends to only drop for a couple of characters, but because of what this is and how it works, if you see Grafted Blade Greatsword as an option, I recommend picking it up and grabbing it on literally any Nightfarer, as even just having it in your offhand, not actually swinging it personally, it is still obscenely powerful for any playstyle in Nightreign. A second example of something that is relatively similar is the Mariah's Executioner Blade. This weapon's legendary passive is increased attack power after killing an enemy, meaning that you can use this in pretty much the same way as the Grafted Blade Greatsword. You can just hold it in your left hand even before you hit level 10 and start collecting damage increases. But then this weapon itself is actually quite strong too, which means you can just use it as your actual weapon too, especially on Wilder, as it is a greatsword with a fantastic weapon skill on it. A couple of extra notes for this weapon specifically that may also apply to Grafted Blades passive, but I have only confirmed them personally with the Mariah's Executioner Sword, and these are that allies getting kills while you have the weapon in one of your equipped hands will also generate you stacks. It's not just your own kills personally, but any kill that happens in the expedition. As well, if you fully die at any point during the expedition, not just go down into a revivable state, but fully die, like you lose a level, your stacks with this weapon from the passive will get completely reset, like you have to start again from the beginning. So do keep that in mind if you get the weapon too. Then there are slightly more obscure things like the Grafted Dragon Fist weapon. It will shoot out an eruption of fire when you use it to get a critical hit, and it will even stay on the floor afterwards. And this is actually significantly more critical hit damage than most weapons will hit for as a result, even at the same amount of attack power. It also leaves behind a patch of fire on the floor afterwards, as I said before, but this does more damage over time to anything that is a larger enemy or anything that doesn't move too much, and that is on top of the unique weapon skill on the Grafted Dragon Fist actually being very good in Nightreign compared to how it is in normal Elden Ring. But then there are also things like the Axe of Godfrey. This gives you increased attack power after you do a charged attack, and this importantly means after you do a charged attack, any damage you do for a short duration is boosted quite a bit. Not just the damage of charged attacks themselves, all of your damage after you do a charge attack. This makes the Axe of Godfrey a really potent weapon for the strengthier melee users like Raider and Guardian, or even Wilder if you find the weapon while using him too. The Darkmoon Greatsword's passive then makes its attacks lower enemy magic damage negation, so if for example you are playing on Recluse focusing on magic damage sorceries and you have Darkmoon Greatsword drop during your run, you can whack an enemy once to lower their negation and just use spells from range, and you would get a massive benefit from doing it like that. Or of course, if you'd find it on any other character and you have a Recluse in your party that you know is using magic damage, then you could just use it on that character. Hit the enemy one time and you will increase their damage a fairly large amount. Then there's also Mogwin's Sacred Spear. This has a passive that gives you increased attack power after blood loss triggers nearby. And so if you, or an ally that is also playing around melee range, has bleed status application of any sort, you can hold this in your left hand and get a massive damage boost anytime the bleed procs to the actual weapon you want to swing in your right hand. The point of all this being, all of these weapons are often judged just on face value, from the weapon and the thought of using it to swing. You see the Grafted Blade Greatsword drop, your first thought might be, I'm not going to use this as a weapon, so I will choose one of the other options instead. But the truth is, the weapon passive alone on that specific legendary weapon is worth more than pretty much anything else that you could be offered. Some of these legendary weapon passives are just generally good, some of them aren't great unless you actually plan on using the weapon, but the main idea here was to tell you to check the passives on any legendary item that drops to make sure whether you want it or not, and to call it a few specific extremely good ones that make it worth taking a weapon that you may otherwise ignore. All that said, let's quickly go over the best practices for finding legendary weapons on expeditions more consistently. There are a few bosses or boss spawn locations specifically around the map with a significantly heightened chance of a legendary dormant power reward, which is where you're going to find legendary weapons the majority of the time. On the standard map, the only two guaranteed high value spawns are the lower boss in the castle that is at the center of the map, this one being down in the sewers. This isn't always a higher tier boss reward, but it seems to have an above average chance of being higher quality. That said, the boss on the roof of the castle all the way up top is the one most guaranteed super high value dormant power spawn on the map that doesn't really change no matter what unless the Shifting Earth removes the castle, as well as being a great source of runes too. So the top of castle boss is a big source you want to make sure that you hit on every expedition if possible. The next main farmable source is from Shifting Earth events. All Shifting Earth events except for the Rotted Woods have a big bad mega boss at the end of them. For the crater, this is the magma worm down at the bottom. For Noclateo, the Shifting City, it's the Estelle in the big cathedral. For the mountaintop, it's the big nasty ice dragon at the end of it too. These three bosses are specifically hard-coded to be a very high quality drop, and they are a relatively consistent source of legendary weapons as a result. You won't necessarily get a legendary weapon on every kill of one of these, but it's one of the most reliable sources that exists in Nightreign. And even doing the Rotted Woods, you can just kill all the giant collection of field bosses in the area to give yourself a decent chance of it too. And talking about the Shifting Earth in relation to this is especially important now that we can force Shifting Earth using the Sovereign Sigils. You can give yourself a much higher chance as a result of getting a legendary on your run. You can force Shifting Earth for the purpose of going out of your way to do these bosses with the higher quality drops. Outside of that, some of the meatier field bosses around the map also have increased chances of high quality dormant powers, but these don't have set spawns in the same way. This includes a lot of the nastier field bosses that you can find that people tend to not really like fighting, like magma worms or your deathrite birds as an example as well. The ones that are generally quite tanky and a lot more threatening to fight. As well, there are 3 bosses that can spawn at random from Everjails that count as quote-unquote oldest Everjail bosses, and there's an achievement tied to this as well. These are the proper duo Godskin fight where both of them come out of the Everjail, the Ancient Dragon that can come out of an Everjail, and the Deathrite Bird from an Everjail. If you ever get one of these encounters from an Everjail, it also has the significantly increased chance of high quality dormant power dropping after you defeat the fight. Other than that, you just want to maximize your boss kills in general throughout your expedition run. Random chests and forts and tiny camps and stuff like that are great if you're just looking for random passives to just like fill up your general inventory slots. But if you want high quality drops and high quality weapons like legendaries, you want to specifically kill bosses. And the bigger and nastier the boss, the better for that purpose. Simple as that. That pretty much does it for today, everyone. Just a short discussion about the guaranteed passives that you can get on legendary weapons, which ones are really worth seeking out in general, the idea that you may be wanting to use more legendary weapons than you currently actually do, and then of course talking about how to give yourself the best chances of finding a legendary on every expedition. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and hopefully it helps increase your chances of finding some sick weapons in the future. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.